Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Today, we have another Profit First success story. Jeff shares how he implemented and how he uses certain accounts that are unique to his business. Jeff Mendelson is the founder of Effectivo.social, a digital marketing company located in Miami, Florida, with deep international business experience. Jeff has successfully transitioned from various tech and sales positions to becoming a consummate entrepreneur. He started and built his company with a foundation that includes delivering services at scale and employing a worldwide network of freelancers, bloggers, and web designers, and project managers. Since going independent, aka fired from his last job, in January of 2009, Jeff has dedicated himself to designing his own lifestyle and enabling his staff to do the same. Jeff continues the tradition of paying it forward in lifestyle design by traveling and working out of various locales worldwide. As a big fan of WeWork and collaborative workspaces, networking and the empowerment are the hallmarks of his success and that of his team. Let's meet Jeff and learn from him. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Jeff Mendelson. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun today.
It is. I enjoyed being on your show and happy to have you here. So can you share with the audience a little bit about what your business is and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Jeff Mendelson. I have a digital marketing agency. I've been doing it for about 15 years now. I got fired from my last job 12 and a half years ago. So it makes me certified unemployable at this point. And basically what I had... the type of work that I focus on is sales funnels, paid advertising, content marketing, and also podcast production. So it's really kind of varied, and mainly because not one of those things you can do like by themselves, right? You can't really do like content marketing without, redoing someone's website, or you can't really do podcast production if you're not, also talking about paid ads and things like that. So what I try to focus on is the holistic approach in order to utilize all of the different channels to make your business stand out.
And it probably makes it easier when you have a one-stop shop. Otherwise, you've got 4 different messages going out on 4 different channels, and your client's customers are confused about what they do and what the appropriate message is for them.
Oh my God, very much so. Because what happens is, as soon as I hit a brick wall, if I'm not the person that has direct control of the domain of the website, things like that, if I can't make a change, then both my hands go over my shoulders and like, sorry, go fix it first. And, that could either happen the next day or it can happen 6 months from now. But in both scenarios, it would literally stop me in my tracks. So I try to take on projects, and before I even take them on, really make sure that I have access to everything that could impact the quality of my work. And sometimes, that doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily within the initial scope of work, right? Because people are like, oh, I just need you to run paid ads for me. Well, we also need to do some things to your website to, measure the conversions and all that. And if those kinds of things can't be measured, then it's like, well, okay, I'm only doing 70% of what you paid me to do.
And I think that's the thing, though. The business owners probably don't realize how all of these things go together because that's not their area of expertise. It's yours. And so you got to kind of educate and help them get a better understanding of that.
That's exactly what happens. So, it comes A, from experience, right? B, it comes from, it comes from a good place that you want to do a really good job and don't want to look for excuses on why you didn't do that great job. You want to make sure that you're able to deliver excellence for your client, no matter what they contract you to do. So that's really important for me to make sure that I have everything under control. Otherwise, I'm really only doing part of a job.
And I like to do that in business, is to have one company handle the entire project. Otherwise, everyone starts pointing their finger at the other one, saying it's their fault, it's their fault. And so it's much, much easier when you can say, no, it's entirely you. It's all your fault. Fix it.
Exactly. And also, like when I'm when I'm the root admin on that server, I can usually fix things pretty quickly. If I have to open up a ticket with tech support and then they get to it 4 hours later or whenever it is, that's an issue, right? And those are all things that I try to mitigate. It's like, you don't want as many issues. You want to make sure that you are delivering, that you're delivering a service that you can in fact control. So I'll give you an example. One of my offerings used to be search engine optimization, right? But search engine optimization is, well, I'm trying to influence a bunch of other sites in order to trick Google into thinking that your site is actually more relevant than others, right? The way I view it is that it's like playing a game of, football against another team. Oh, and by the way, they can move the goalposts and they can change the rules and they can do whatever they want, right? And there's no one to complain to. Like if all of a sudden you were ranking really well and the next day you're on page 3, that'll take weeks, if not months, to get you back. And it becomes a problem. It becomes a real problem. And for example, something like that, since I couldn't guarantee the outcome, at least from my hard work, it's something I just sort of left to the wayside. I'm like, something, let someone else deal with that. I'm going to deal with the stuff that I can control. And frankly, doing search engine optimization takes months, if not years, to rank well, for big businesses. So I'm really glad I got away from that.
And I think as a business owner, you need to figure out what's your zone of genius, where can you have the biggest impact, and where do you have the biggest control, and pivot your business to that. And it's an important part of how your overall profit is going to end up being. Because if you're struggling and you're spinning your wheels and you're dealing with other people's problems, that is just crushing your profit margins. And so this all kind of ties back into why we're here today. So
exactly.
I would love to learn from you how you learned about Profit First.
I had a really great project manager who was always bringing me great ideas. Her name is Sarah Noked, and she actually trains online business managers, certifies them and, gets them up to speed. And, she noticed that I was having some cash flow problems at one point. And that's where, she explained the concept to me. She's like, listen, Jeff, you probably have like one bank account for your personal and one bank account for your business, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, how'd you know? And she was just like, well, yeah, that's a thing. So she's like, I think what's really going to help you is this book, Profit First. And she sent me a copy. So I read it and I was like, something, this is actually quite interesting. Like, it basically forces you to put, your money into silos beforehand so that you can, so you don't have to think about in the future, what's coming out. I think what a lot of people do, even in their personal life, right, is that they just think to themselves like, oh, I got $1,000 in the bank account. I have $1,000, right? But then they forgot about that check for 200 that they wrote to this place. They forgot about the check, over there. And I'll give you a real world example. I made a tax payment to the IRS, right? It was like $300-400, and I did this like back in October. They didn't deposit the check until February, right? Because it's like they were behind with COVID. So they had a myriad of excuses. They told me, don't worry about it. It's from the date that we received it, right? So you're not going to get more fines and penalties. But the day that it finally came out of my bank account, it was like, wait a second. There's got to be, where the hell did this thing come from? And it came from, and it turned out that it was from a check I wrote 4 months ago, and that can and does happen, to any person or business. So I think that once you compartmentalize, once you silo those funds and put it aside, just get it out of sight, out of mind, so that it's going to be paid and you don't have to worry about it anymore. It is a much different peace of mind, so that I can go and focus on other things in my business.
So how was your profitability before you implemented Profit First?
I would say profitability, I would say it was about as good as anyone could have, hoped for, right? But, what happens is, you start missing things, right? Because I have my operating expenses account, I have my taxes account, I have my payroll account, things like that. And you just miss things, right? And so then I try to put everything into a Google Calendar, with recurring every month. Like, on the 5th, this is going to come out for this particular, software package that I'm paying for, things like that. But that gets messy very, very quickly, right? Or you can put it into a spreadsheet, which is equally as messy, right? And what happens is, you just don't think about it as like, well, like if I see $1,000 in the account and, all right, I guess I did well this week. Right. So it really does require like a little bit more mental capacity in order to keep all those numbers straight. And what Profit First does is that it just really helps you, let that information dissipate because you've already taken care of it. It's like writing your to-do list the night before. You don't need to stress it when you wake up in the morning, right? Because you just know that it's done. You know that it's put to bed.
So how have things been since you've implemented?
It's been up and down. So when Profit First works, right, it works great. I mean, at first I was like, I went to my bank and I was like, hey, something, I need to open up these other 8 bank accounts, right? And they just sort of look at you like, huh? Like, why do you need to do that? And, I explained it to them and they're like, oh, okay, more fees for us, so...
Find a better
so they
bank.
Oblige me. Right. But what happens is, once you do that and once you label everything correctly, it starts to make sense. I know that my monthly recurring expenses are X, right? So I just need to make sure that at any one point I'm covering, X number of payments. So it wasn't really a question of increasing profitability, but it did free up my time to be able to focus on other income generating activities, as opposed to me being my own personal accountant before I go and engage my real accountant, who is very hard to get in touch with anyways, right? In order to ask him questions, because it's just such an asynchronous relationship, right? Like you send them an email like, hey, why is this here? And someone will get back to you in the afternoon, the next morning, 2 days later, whatever it is, right? But if I'm working on the stuff right now, I need the answer right now. So once you get into this habit, I would say the biggest increase for me was efficiency, right? That I was able to go back to, not spending 2 to 4 hours a week, just on figuring out which money is going where. I already knew where it was going. I've already allocated for it, and then I could just move on to other stuff.
So it made you more efficient and got rid of lots of hassles and allowed you to go do what you loved instead of fussing over things you didn't really care much about.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, accounting is one of those things like, yeah, I have an MBA. Yeah, I took a number of accounting courses, but the fact of the matter is y'all can keep it. right? It's like, I would just love to just know, like, all right, just how much do I have to spend this week? Am I good? Yeah. All right, let's go. That would be ideal.
So what did your accountant say when you introduced this to him or her?
So I was really surprised. I thought that my accountant didn't know anything about this, and he was actually all for it. He's like, oh yeah, of course I heard about it. I'm like, so you're okay with me implementing this? Like, hell yeah, go for it. Right. So I set it up, and I'm really organized anyways. Like I have a sheet that where I share all the documentation with them. This account is for this account is for that. So it really, once I set up my schema of how the accounts work and what flows into what, all I needed to do was to train one or two people on his side, just to explain to them, like, okay, anything you want to know about my business, look at this sheet first. This will give you the map. And then you'll be able to see, if I move an account from one to the other, money from one to the other, then you'll know that it came from this and this is why. Right. So it was just, they were very receptive to it. And, I was like, great, if, my accountant says it's okay, I'm going to go for it.
And that's good. Sometimes people have to fight with their accountant. And it's good that your accountant already knew the system and was supportive of you and made it easy for you to make that pivot.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really cool that I was able to do that. And I had his full blessing. Like I understood the concepts. I had a meeting with him to discuss what it is that I wanted to do, and he was just like, Jeff, we do this for a number of clients as well. So go for it. Just keep things straight.
Just out of curiosity, do you know why he didn't bring it to you?
I know I'm a smaller client for him, right? And, I think that accountants and bookkeepers, depending on the types of clients overall that they have, I'm sure I didn't fit into this grand, this grand thing. I'm sure I wasn't his top 10 clients, right? But that didn't really bother me that much. I just really wanted someone accessible, someone I can jive with, someone I can, if I ask a question, I'll get a straight answer. And that's really what I was looking for. I was just looking for someone, another expert that I can bounce a question off of. Rarely, when do I need to talk to my accountant? Maybe once a quarter, twice a quarter, to ask him a question or two. I just got, I just got married last year, and now my wife just got her green card last week, right? So those are things that, obviously are going to change my personal taxes and things like that. So how does that all affect? And, for those kind of stuff, he's really, he's really effective. I think that he's probably of the school of thought that, well, Jeff, it looks like you have a successful business. So who am I to tell you that you have to, go get, 8 to 10 bank accounts now, right? It's just, at least to me, it sounded like more work for him, right? Whereas I was trying to mitigate the amount of work that I had. So it was really just this happy coincidence of Sarah recommending the book, my accountant signing off on it, me going to the banks and, sending it. It was really easy to set up once I had it clear in my head that this is what this one's going to do, this is what that one's going to do, and all the way down the line.
Just did you name your bank accounts in your bank so that when you sign on? Okay. Because that's one thing that really helps out is if you rename your accounts on your online screen, showing what the purpose of the account is. And then this way you don't have to think about it. You look and you go, oh, that's my profit account, or that's my pay account, or that's my tax account. And you don't have to think about it as much. So getting those little things done removes so much friction.
Right. And I also have a couple of different businesses as well, different S corps, right? So I like to have those all on the initial screen, like the dashboard screen that says company A has this, company B has that, company C has that. So, I just developed a 3-letter code for the business dash CK or SV for whether it's a checking or savings account, dash taxes, dash OPEX, dash payroll, dash ad spend, things like that. And from there, I was able to branch out, pretty easily. One of the other things that I'm not sure if this is unique to me, but when I'm running a paid ads account, normally what I try to do is to just get my clients to put their credit card into Facebook and Google, right? Let them you're paying Google directly. You don't need me as a pass through. But I have two clients that are like, no, Jeff, we want to clean up our books. Like, we just want to pay you, like the $500 ad spend or the $1,000 ad spend. Can we just give it to you? I'm like, okay, great. So yeah, I mean, I hit their card for, whatever it is that I need. Right. And then I opened up yet another specific silo specifically for that client. And what that does is, say, for example, Google decides to charge 50% more than what they, than what we initially agreed upon. Well, they're not going to get it because I didn't run everything through my main operating account, right? I only put in enough money for the month that they needed.
So what does Google do when that happens?
Well, if they try to charge the card and it fails, it'll they'll stop the ads, right?
Okay.
And then I'll get a notification. Now, if I'm running everything okay, right, and if everything is like the client pays me on time, then it's great. I charge them the $2,000. I take the $1,000 and put that into their ad spend account, and then when Google comes around to charge their stuff, if there's enough money in the account, then great, then it works. Now, what happens if they pay me late, right? If my client then pays me late, now it's the end of the month, Google wants their money, they try to run it, and they're like, hey, Jeff, we tried to hit your card, it didn't work. Well, now we're going to stop the ads. Now, that really isn't much skin off of my back. It's just my client now is taking the time to pay me for that stuff. And, I'm nice about it. I tell them, listen, this is important that you pay on time, and here's why. And, you try to work with them, right? You just try to make sure that everything's working. If I wasn't doing this, right, if I was paying out Google ahead of time and then my client decides to take a 3-month vacation and not pay me for anything, well, now that ad spend is entirely out of my pocket and not part of something that I'm profitable with. It becomes an actual drag on everything. So that's why it's it just remained. It was critically important to just open another checking account, with the lowest fees possible. Get a debit card so that I can put that specific debit card into Google, Facebook, or whatever it is, and then just manage the purse that way.
And that's nice. It creates a circuit breaker that automatically clicks off when it hits its limit. You don't get stuck. And it creates the incentive for the client to pay on time because now their ad's stopped. And so if they want their ad to continue, they have to take action. And it takes you out of the whole situation. And so I like that. That's impressive how you did.
Yeah, but basically it's just an extension of Profit First. It's just one more specific checking account. And my kids laugh because I have a stack of debit cards that's about, I don't know, like the size of a pack of cigarettes. And each one of those cards, will say my name, but then it'll say the specific what that particular account is for, for operating expense, taxes, ad spend for this, ad spend for that. So it's really easy for me to just go and, dig it out of my drawer, go through it, so I have the physical card, but I don't need to carry it with me. And also, like at least in this country, we can't, it's not as common as in other countries to do direct debits. Like some services do, most don't. Most just want to see a 16-digit card. So, that's why it's there. And then as long as I'm keeping that information safe, right? Not sharing it with anybody, not putting it on an open spreadsheet that the world can see, things like that, then it becomes, just easier to work with.
Sounds like a plan. Mike always says, when in doubt, add an account. And so you create accounts for all the special situations that you have. And at the end of the day, if you set up the processes easily, it is not that difficult to do. And it sounds like you've done a great job of setting up the processes to make it easy. So just out of curiosity, everyone seems to be reinventing themselves these days. COVID has kind of changed the way different businesses have to pivot and continue to move forward. What have you done to reinvent yourself during these past year or so?
I think on a personal level, first of all, I had to get used to working from home again. Right? It was something that the last time I did it in earnest, my kids were 6 and 8, so it was all daddy, daddy, daddy knocking on the door type thing. You couldn't get anything done, so I would run away to a public library. I would run away to a WeWork, just anything like that. It just became not as comfortable. To go to these places, you always got to mask up, you got to mask down. It's just you just have to like move a little bit more carefully as you're going through them. So, on a personal level, I set up my workspace the way I wanted. I'm surrounded by 3 monitors. I have a beautiful kitchen countertop that acts as my desk, and put everything on boom arms and all that. And it's like, okay, this is like my command center now, and it's not just me taking everything in in a backpack and building it up, breaking it down, things like that. On the business side, it really took a little bit of understanding. I really only lost one larger client, right? Which is, as an entrepreneur in general, you go from having one boss to 40 bosses, right? Or 50 or 100 bosses, however many clients you have. So you really just want to make sure that that your income is diversified enough that if you do lose one or two, larger clients, that it's not the end of the world, right? And what that does is like, okay, if you lose a big one, so first of all, you need to figure out why. And I think with COVID, a lot, it exposed a lot of inefficiencies in other people's businesses as well. So I'll give you an example, like restaurants. So I don't deal with a lot of restaurants, but I see this on a daily basis, right? Is that restaurants, they have these really high hard costs between their rent and all their equipment and the personnel and all that. So the ones that weren't able to go digital and be able to handle the DoorDash and the Uber Eats and all that, right? They just wouldn't be able to work very efficiently. Now, the ones that do embrace that, even if they're paying a little bit of a tax to use those services. I mean, I walked into this Indian restaurant, like 2 weeks ago Sunday, and the restaurant itself was empty, but the guy, he had just one person on the phone, and he was just on the phone, up and down, up and down, up and down. He had all these orders coming in, and you see all these bags nicely lined up for, the DoorDash people to come and pick it up, and then people like me that came to pick it up. These guys weren't skipping a beat, in terms of, servicing the customer. That said, yeah, it does kind of suck that you have to go pick up your food and then eat it at home. But I think that's all part of like, okay, like this restaurant figured it out and is still able to deliver the great food that, that everyone likes. So when I look at this, right, I view it as an opportunity to be like, okay, what can I do now if I'm going to keep on doing the exact same thing year after year after year? Eventually, Facebook isn't going to be with us forever. Or if it is going to be with us forever, it's definitely going to be in a different form 5 years from now. Right now, we have all this wearable tech. We have, voice searches, becoming a thing, augmented reality, like everyone's live streaming. All of these things are tectonic shifts in the way we meet, we communicate, we network, all of that stuff. So you do have to level up, right? Like I didn't, like this camera I'm talking to you on, I've had this camera for like 3 years, right? And then I was like, oh, wait a second, I can plug this in and use this as a webcam. Oh my God, right? And then I have this really great video as opposed to the tiny camera that's on my laptop. And it's like, okay, I leveled up that way, right? And I think the more that we can think about how we can adapt to, I hate to say new normal, right? Because, going back to old normal, it's whatever, these normals change anyways. Right, the way we used to go out to eat, 5 years ago changed, compared to today, even pre-COVID, right? And then it changed again, and there are some winners and losers with all of these changes. Now that people are getting vaccinated, so much quicker in this country, it's like, okay, like that's going to change things, but how much and when is that going to change? So does that mean that like my kids are going to go to school in person. Do I have to get a babysitter now? Like all of these questions, and it's all, and it's all individual, right? Some people did really well, working from home and with COVID. They were much more able to focus. They were able to be more productive. They were able to move out of their high rent San Francisco, high rises and go get a place in Phoenix, Arizona for half the cost but double the size. Great. That kind of migration and those kind of trends are the things that actually drive businesses. And I think it's very exciting to see. You just have to make sure that you're propped up in order to take advantage of those kinds of those changes as well.
And we all have to work on our business instead of in our business, because as you said, the world is constantly evolving. And so you have to constantly be changing, looking for one step ahead, one way to be ahead of whatever the trends are. And those that can kind of set themselves up for that will have much more success. So when I built this business, I built it on a virtual model. So when COVID happened, I was ready. It didn't change anything in it. So from that standpoint, it actually made it easier, because prior to COVID, the whole concept of a video call was a lot more of a struggle for some people. Nowadays, nobody even thinks twice about it. And that's the way that I work with my clients. I work on Zoom. And so everyone became much more comfortable in my space, which is kind of nice.
What's interesting is that when I first started out in earnest, I was really on my own, and I wanted to build this name and build this brand and build this business. I did everything that I could to make myself look bigger than I actually was. I got an 800 number that forwarded to my cell phone, right? I talked about, my office in Argentina, where I had some programmers and things like that. And it, at some point it was kind of silly, when I look back on it. But the truth of the matter is I would go and meet with clients and they'd be like, well, how many people work for you? I'm like, well, I have, 5 on payroll and another 20 on, as contractors. And, these guys were really old school CFPs, right? So they're just looking at me like, nah, you look like a freelancer, right? And I was so hurt, and I was like, no, and I didn't get the job, and I'm like, God damn it, I gotta be, I gotta look bigger than I actually am. And then when I started, at least what I noticed is that a lot of the tools that we have today are really positioning themselves for personal brands as opposed to corporate brands, right? Because at the end of the day, it's really not what you know, right? It's what you do with what you know, right? And being able to sell that and to explain it to other people and to, get them to, to trade your time for their money, then it becomes interesting, right? So I think that now it's become much more accepted. I remember laughing out loud, actually, when Yahoo, for example, canceled all remote work. They told everybody, you either need to come into an office or you're welcome to look for another job anywhere, right? And this was 5-6 years ago when they did that. Where's Yahoo today? It's like Salesforce. I read last month, just basically told everybody, move wherever you want. Keep your salary. If you had a San Francisco salary and now you live in Iowa, go for it. It's all good. They embraced it. And that's frankly how a lot of companies are going to be nowadays.
And I think the world is dramatically changing as far as business. And the reality is it depends on the type of business you have, but having a flexible workforce is wonderful, because as you go through ebbs and flows, then you can pull them in, send them out. You don't have a ton of overhead, and you have the ability to kind of plug and play and get the best people all the time. And people are realizing that too. And so, when I came out of college, you were supposed to get one job and stay there for 40 years. That doesn't happen anymore.
I thought that too. When I got my MBA 15 years ago, I was sure Microsoft was going to be calling me any second now. Google was going to be calling me any second now. And you know what I heard? Crickets. Absolute crickets. And I was like, yeah, this sucks. I'm going to have to do something else. You know, and that's where and that's where the foundation of everything really started, because I was like, I am now waiting and hoping for someone to pick me for the opportunity to build someone else's dream.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me so long to figure that part out, that everything that I was doing, that, you know, when you go from job to job to job, all you're doing is figuring out somebody else's dream. And I don't want any part of that anymore. Now I'll help you build your dream, right? But, you know, but it's going to build mine as well. So it's got to be aligned.
And that's what this is all about. It's about helping small business owners build their dreams and have the fuel to be able to do that. And that's why I love Profit First, because it helps to put you on a strong financial footing, and it allows you to be able to pivot and to make the choices you want to make based on your values and not on your bank account. And so it's phenomenal from that standpoint.
Exactly.
If people would like to learn more about your services, check out your podcast, what's the best way for them to do all of that?
Sure. So the best way to find me is at my main site, which is jeffmendelson.com. There's a link to the podcast up on the top. I also talk about on the site the different services that I offer for content marketing, paid ads, digital strategy, and podcast production. So just go and check that out over there. I'm also going live at least twice a week now, for podcast interviews. The podcast name is The One Big Tip, where I interview entrepreneurs and influencers and marketers on what's their one big tip for managing their businesses that they'd like to share. So be sure to check that out.
My one big tip was change the equation you use for profit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
I'm going to put links to Jeff's site, jeffmendelson.com, in the show notes. Check out his podcast, One Big Tip. As you know, I was on the show to talk about Profit First. If you need his services, reach out to him. What tips can you implement based on this episode to help you build your dreams? As for me, I love helping business owners have the financial freedom to do that for themselves. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer, because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.